All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining my session today. Really appreciate you joining the acuCONNECT conference as well as my session today here on estimating versus product configurator, when to use each. We're going to take a little bit of a dive into understanding, um, the advantages of both, when to use one, when to use other. They got a lot of similarities, but really at the end of the day, they got a lot of very big differences that we'll dive into today. But before we get started with our session, I want to take just a few minutes to thank our sponsor, Stack Construction Technologies. For those of you not familiar with Stack, they provide the leading takeoff and estimating platform for construction that's accelerated by AI and purpose built to empower suppliers, general contractors, and specialty contractors to bid faster and with greater accuracy to drive increased project profitability. As a leader in that pre-construction space, Stack recognizes that estimators build the financial foundation of a project, but that often that data lives in silos, slowing handoffs, increasing risk, and reducing profitability. That's why the partnership and integration between Stack and Acumatica is so valuable. It eliminates the data breakdown and strengthens financials from the very start of a project by enabling real-time syncing of budgets, forecasts, and actuals, reduced manual entry and costly errors, and improve project analytics and profitability insights. If you want to learn more about Stack and their Acumatica integration, visit their virtual booth here at the acuCONNECT conference or by scanning the QR code you see here. I'll leave that up just for a few seconds. All right. So our objective today, we're going to determine those best uses for estimating when using for quoting and pricing, or do we use product configurator? Where should they be used? We'll start off a couple little quick introduction sponsor. We're going to initially dive into those two major areas. Then I'm going to spend a little bit of time right on estimates specifically. And then we'll spend just a little bit more time on the configurator side. It's a little bit more involved. There's a couple more things to talk about, but we'll use that. And then if we got any time remaining at the end, try to make sure I leave just a couple minutes there for some Q&A if we got some. Okay. All right. Configure and estimate. Why everybody's here today. So estimates. Estimates are typically used when you have an engineered to order type of environment, right? Where an engineering team is going to come in, they're going to look at these customers' requirements, be able to utilize their knowledge and strengths, put together what they believe is that operational bill of material in listing and routing in order to move forward with them. They typically have product lines with non-predefined options. The whole point of that engineer to order is things are typically being built or engineered as the quote is occurring. Those customer requests for changes are typically brought in. They usually have revision control. This estimate process helps support that entire process. You have the ability to compare the time of the quote and compare time on that estimate to the time when you get into production. Be able to see analysis between what your estimate was and what your actual production was going to be. Some of the advantages that you have here within the estimating module, you have the ability to use non-inventory items, right? Within a lot of Acumatica, you have non-stock and stock items that are listed and recorded right in your inventory master. This gives you an ability to create what we call non-inventory. They're not in your inventory master whatsoever. It allows you to get quoting, be able to produce new products that you might not have been able to make, new subassemblies that go into producing those types of things. So you're able to use placeholders that don't muddy up your inventory and bill of material master list. Other advantages, you can go straight to production, being able to go right from an estimate right to production without being able to create a bill of materials. Very, very valuable, especially in very engineered order, very specific type processes. And you have the ability to do markup percentages within each cost bucket, things like materials, variable overhead, tooling costs. Individually mark those up in order to get to your eventual price. And in recent versions, Acumatica has added in price breaks, the ability to take not only that one estimate, but then be able to do it at different quantities, take advantage of some of those different setup times and processing times that you might have in order to get a more accurate price or just different quotes to your customer. Where we see this a lot used is within contract manufacturing, job shop type businesses. They're varying customer requirements that do not have those predefined options really make it beneficial for them to use these types of things. Now, kind of making our way over to Configurator. Right? When to use these? Well, typically you'd see these more in the make to order, a configure to order, an assemble to order type of environment. These are usually more leveraged by a sales team in a front end environment, right? They're usually interaction with your customer directly, where estimates tend to be more of that back end engineering process that you'd have. Very different to an estimate. They have product lines with predefined options. These are things that are known already ahead of time. Best example I always have for this is car manufacturers. You go to a dealership like a Ford or a Honda, you have the ability to customize your different products, but only in the options that they chose and gave to you. You do not have the ability to make up things, have all new configurations that have never been developed or manufactured before. So those customizable combinations of those features, dimensions, options, etc., what they're done is they're built with rules in order to validate that they can be done properly. In some cases, without rules, as they may not be needed. The advantages of the configurator, maybe more so than an estimates, as you have now formula-based equations that you can use to calculate the amount of quantity required. Being able to put in different components and information and dimensionally based the requirements that you need is hugely important to people like windows, door manufacturers, and other dimensional based configurators. These structured results with based on rules and validation help control and manage that your production is going to be able to produce exactly to what the sales team is dictated. Engineering and estimates are a little bit more free formed. You do not have as much of these rules in place, or if you do, they're in the minds of the engineers that are building them. Then you also have dynamic pricing, the ability to select different items, choose different options, features, attributes, and drive different pricing to that overall configuration. Again, very similar to that car manufacturer where you buy more options, more advanced options, that price tends to go up pretty quickly. So that's why you tend to see these in a more businesses that have these defined product and product offerings, unlike an estimator where you have the more of that free-formed knowledge that might be there. So that's configure and estimating. Now let's go ahead and dive into even further estimates. So estimates have the ability to be easily created from existing bills of material, existing estimates, as well as existing production orders. So being able to quickly and easily get all the details that you would need for a new estimate can be easily done. Now, on the opposite side of that, you're also able to manually create those or create them on the fly as necessary or some level in between. You have similar function as you do in a lot of Acumatica with classes. So estimate classes can be used to help not only classify different estimates, but be able to drive different markups, right? As we'll see based on the labor costs, material, different things of that nature. You can also leverage existing manufacturing costs, things like work center standard cost rates, material costs, things that are already known within Acumatica to help build up your internal costs as well as your external price. Now, at the same time, what the estimates does allow you to do is even overwrite those particular bits of information. So that way you can put in your own costs, your own totals, your own operational times based on potentially external data or other ways that you generate your estimate costing. And then with all this, you have, we talked about using non-inventory items within the estimates themselves. What this process allows you to do is quickly and easily take those estimates, take those non-inventory items, and turn those into stock or non-stock items within the system. Then you're able to use those within the production process or even potentially within future orders that you may have out there. So when it comes to pricing, that's a big piece along with configurator, right? You are, whether it's your configure price quote or you're estimating in order to garner a price for that customer. At the end of the day, you're including your different materials that are included so that you can drive to that eventual price. Here on the estimates, you have multiple ways to get to that. We've talked about the markups that you have, and you can see a little bit on the left-hand side there that we have the percentages, multiple different ones that we could have per category. That way you can better take advantage of, some things where you might have more overrun, like labor or material costs that might fluctuate quite significantly. So you want to put in a markup that can make up those costs. These estimates, they can be used in various places throughout the system. Not only can they be self-contained, build them within your own, just in the estimate screen, but as we have really already alluded to, you can use them within the sales and quoting process. Not only can they be used in sales orders, within quotes, or sales orders directly if you so choose, but they can be used also in the CRM module using opportunities and sales quotes. Building that in not only within the order, but especially within that quote helps generate that price and those customer requirements that you need down the line. One of the things that Acumatica allows too is to have multiple estimates per order or per quote. So not only what you see here is just one estimate, I can also have multiple estimates and even multiple revisions within each estimate. So now you get multiple different iterations, maybe different negotiation that's gone back and forth, or maybe you've had to go through different part numbers or different vendors in order to build up this estimate. So the ability to create multiple revisions while also managing and tracking all that is very, very important to our engineer order type customers. And again, we have those price breaks. Price breaks allow us to take not only the normal quantity it would make, but what happens if we make multiples of those? And how does that incorporate things like setup times, fixed quantities that I might have, and extrapolate that over an entire production run? You also have the ability to do quick estimates, right? We're talking a little bit of larger estimates that have operations, have materials, have more involved costing measures that go into it. You can also just quickly and easily put in values that you need to be in order for that estimate to go across to the customer. So maybe you have an external system, something that you calculate separately, but still need that information to be living within Acumatica here. In that bottom right hand corner there is a quick estimate capability from sales orders and opportunities where you can fill out that information much faster. That way you can get that out to a customer and be able to get that order and deal in much more efficiently. All right, so that's estimates. Now let's get into Configurator a little bit. So Configurator, there's a lot where there's within the management of it and the maintenance of it, Acumatica uses the attribute functionality very uniquely here, where it pulls in the use of labels first and foremost, which what it allows you to do is reuse the same attribute ID over and over again while having different labels to drive different usage. So that can be very, very critical for things like numbers or color swatches where you have the same set of information from one to the next. But that label that's in that second column there in the image allows you to change the usage of what that value is presenting, while all at the same time using Acumatica's attributes to do things like text fields, drop downs, date fields, anything that is used within those attribute functionality there, right? And even with that, you have in attributes, some may be familiar with this, the ability to mask those or be able to control how you even enter in those texts. That even falls over into the configurator here just the same. One of the biggest uses of the attributes here, if not the biggest use on the configurator itself, is the variables. Those variables in that third column there, that now stores the value for that configurator to not only be used outside of it for reporting purposes if you so choose, but even more importantly, within the configuration itself. Being able to do formulas, calculations, and even be able to use things like text to produce within the description of the sales order. Hopefully I can show that a little bit here in just a minute. All the while in those attributes, you can write rules that help require, validate, and make sure that they're falling in line with what you should be having. So you're able to write those within that just the same. That's attributes. Those are really highly commonly used with very consistent quick answers. I tend to say that you want those to be your main upfront parameter type values. Here's door size, here's door width. Okay, now I move into my next area, which are my features and options, right? You can have many features with many options to each feature. And within each option and each feature, you can select multiples, right? Some of the advantages of having features and options here is you can choose how much you want in those selections. You can force the user to make sure that they choose at least a certain amount or a min, or make sure that they choose no more than a certain amount, a max. And if they do, you're able to throw error messages back at that individual and let them know exactly what's transpiring. This features and options also leverages inventory. So as you're making these selections, which I'm going to show you in a minute how you do that, as you make those selections, that inventory item is what's pulling over into production. So now you're not only making a selection to a salesperson into that customer requirement, but you're now also selecting the back end inventory that's needed for your production team. That also in turn can drive pricing. A couple different ways you can do pricing on that, but it can drive pricing based on those selections that you have out there, right? If I choose an advanced option in my vehicle, right, that navigation, well, great. Let me add that additional price to my order. So being able to, on those selections, choose price. Now, Acumatica has a few ways of pricing. Within the configurator, you can have a fixed configured price. It's going to be one flat price, doesn't matter what options I choose. Or really, you can kind of have more of the dynamic choosing. And there's actually flavors in between both, where you can have a base price, getting back to my car example, plus options, and be able to add that in. So configuration is more based on the selections that you're choosing for pricing, a little bit more so than I would say the estimating is. It's more percentage based over there. And very similar to those attributes, you have a lot of rules to be based for inclusions, exclusions. I choose this, I can't choose that. I choose this, I must choose that. So you have this ability to write in these rules to make sure that what the individuals are selecting all makes sense and are valid. Let's get a little bit into our configurator example here. So you have initially within the configuration maintenance the ability to test your configurations. So before you even release them to the main floor and be able to have them in a usable, sellable environment, of course, you'd like to go through and test what those options are going to do. Making sure error messages are valid, making sure selections are all there, drop down choices are accurate, and probably at the end of the day, one of the biggest things is your price correct? So what this enables you to do, you have your attributes tab, features and options tab, all combined in one. And as you make selections, you can kind of maybe see is it will mark those green as you've validated those, and those that have not been validated yet will be red. And so it's your attempt to, of course, all green go. But as you go through, you have certain requirements of why you need to select things. There's those min and max selections again. There's min and max lot quantities that you can have thrown out there so that, again, like the vehicle example, you can't have more than 4 tires, right? I guess it depends on the vehicle you have, but you can only have that many. So being able to control not how much quantity you have, but the selections you can choose within each, right? I can only choose one navigation option. I can only choose one seat type. I can't choose multiple. So this configuration in the entry piece here is to validate a lot of those options, right? And those selections that you have out there. Now, that is within the configuration entry and maintenance. So as you maintain those and work through those, you are going to then activate those configurations and make them ready for prime time. After you make those ready for prime time, you can now then leverage those within different orders, sales orders, quotes, CRM opportunities, and the like. And what you'll also see is actually a very similar setup, right? If you're going to test it, it might as well be the exact same as the real results. So again, I'm just showing here a little bit of what that would look like at a more, kind of front end level from the order, and being able to experience that as a customer side of things, right? So as those users make those selections, again, I'm building that price there at the top of the screen. One actually thing with that price I just want to mention is it is leveraging Acumatica's pricing engine. So if you have customer specific pricing, you got customer price class specific pricing, different base prices, right? Depending on the item you select, it is leveraging all of those within there, right? So that all adding up as I make my selections leads me back into my sales order. So as I confirm that order, finish that particular configuration, what it's then going to do is going to fill in my price that I have that's out there based on those selections, right? Then from now that I have this sales order, the next big step from here, similar to an estimate, I'm going to go to production, right? Different though, estimate, I can go straight to production. Don't need that bill of material. What this configuration though has is it does have a back-end bill of material. It has this already predefined notion of operations, runtimes, those types of things. And really what you're doing is you're impacting the materials that go into that particular order and that structure within that order. So that when you create your production order, which you might be able to see from that production order 164 down there on the line, is you'll see the culmination of all that together. So it's going to take that information from that bill of material. So in this case, I had 5 different operations that I already had predefined on there. And then as I made my different selections all the way for the different pieces of the door, they interjected them into the appropriate operations. So just one example here, just showing it that I was selecting the one that was going into operation 20. So that way, not only am I getting the appropriate quantity required, which that 263 inches was based even off of the size of that door, and I now also get it to the exact operation that I needed for. So that way I'm not improperly selecting the material or picking the material at the wrong time and when I don't necessarily need it. So that does lead to that accurate quantity required, right? Again, dynamically built off of that. And one last thing, as this gets over to production, we have within Acumatica, the configuration is actually stored to both values at the same time, the exact same configuration. So you can actually make changes on one side or even the other in order to make changes that are in that configuration. Really what happens in that though is typically you'd see it on the front end at the sales side, and then when it gets to production, it's typically static. But I've had some customers where what they'll do is they'll go back into that configuration and make additional changes, right? Things that they need to know for their manufacturing purpose so that they can properly update what the details of that order. Okay. And so really, I think that takes us about to the end of Configurator. There's a lot more involved that I'm sure that I could definitely get into. It's a very complex yet simple module. At the end of the day, again, the big difference is the fact that estimates are free-formed. They're allowed for more flexibility in what you can enter in, and thus, because of that, there's less validation. Where on the side of product configurator, there's a lot more validation, and you're building a lot more of these rules and validations and confirmations into the set that you're doing. So I've always found the big difference is between predefined options selections, configurator, versus estimates is a little bit more of non-predefined, non-predetermined, and a little bit more free-formed. End of the day, they're selecting materials, you're getting price. A lot of it's on the front end from a quoting perspective, but they drive from very different means of I know everything that goes into it, and here's my information, versus I don't know, and I'm going to make up a little bit as I go, or I'm going to engineer that type of information as I go. So, very good uses for both, and hopefully you learned a couple things today. I see one question from Toon there, and Toon, it is not a multiple level product configurator. It is only a single level. So when it configures, it only chooses the first level options. If those were a subassembly and require further configuration of those, that would be done in a different configuration altogether on another order. They are Acumatica's product configurator is one level. And I am not sure about the mayor's group availability, so I apologize on that. I can't. You might need to reach out to them directly on that one. Hopefully that answered your question. Anybody else have any questions that interest you? I do have approximately 4 minutes remaining. 3 minutes.
Yeah, look at that. You made it.
I'd say 27 minutes, so I was pretty spot on.
Right on.
I see. Unfortunately, the last summit was the first one I've missed in 10 years. So I did not get to see that, unfortunately. I think I put my contact information, but my profile is up to date. It has a lot of my contact information in there. If anybody would like to send any separate questions, sometimes I get you're in an environment like this, it's hard to ask the question, but in a separately, you're more willing to. So please feel free to reach out. Again, I'm a senior Acumatica consultant manager at Blytheco. I've been here for I just passed my 5 year, going into my 6 year now, but I've been in the Acumatica space since 2012. I've been around for a little bit of time. I was at the company that developed this in the first place at Joss Systems, just been using Acumatica ever since, and probably will for the rest of my life. I love it. But appreciate everybody joining. And again, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.